Hey, Ticats fans, it's your digital host, Louie B. And of course, Ticats have made a flurry of moves in the last few weeks, basically from Christmas on. And here we are approaching mid-January. And to recap some of those moves and give his thoughts is our good friend, Steve Milton from the Hamilton Spectator. Milty, Happy New Year. It's great to see you. How are you, my friend?
Same to you, Lewis. I'm good. I mean, other than the fact that I got my lockdown haircut here clearly, and or lack of thereof. Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's great to have chances like this to talk to friends who you don't get to see in person. So yeah, you're right about Ticats. Flurry would be the right thing. I think this is part of the deal. It's a down period in time, and lots of these deals are probably agreed upon a little bit earlier. I wouldn't say the ones right now are, but some of the earlier ones, and they released them in a way to keep the team in the news a little bit.
Yeah, and let's get right into it, and let's start at the top with extensions to Sean Burke and Drew Alamang, two football guys, two guys who probably know the CFL better than just about any front office across this league.
Yeah, I mean, not to diminish other front offices because it's a league that tends to know each other. But I would say ground up, those guys are probably true. And they've just slaved their butts off, both of them. I mean, they started really, really young, right? And started in different things, particularly Burke, who started, in a department that you're in, really. He sort of got that and changed that department around and put it in a situation to expand to where we're at a situation like today. But Burke's got an incredible reputation around this league, but and particularly he's a lot through the United States as well. If you notice, there's a lot of people still connected to this team through Berkey, one of whom I talked to yesterday, a guy named Dennis Polian. And people will recognize that last name because he's Bill's son. And Bill built not only the Super Bowl teams in '94, he got fired before or in the night that went to four straight. He built the Colts into a Super Bowl team as well. And Dennis was here in 2008 as an assistant to Obi, Bob Obilovich as a GM, and also helped out with the running backs. So he keeps in contact with the team through Burke, and Burke does that with a lot of ex-players too, and current players. So I think that's part of. You hear a lot of guys. I think some guys took some. Part of it's the economic conditions, but I think some of the players on this team this year and last year took what you would call a hometown discount. Partly because they felt they could win, and you can make it back on a bit on the back end there. Partly because some of them got front end money, and partly because there's kind of this is overused, this phrase, because every team tries to get it, a family situation, family, and I use that in quotation marks, meaning, surrogate family with the Tiger Cats. And I think that starts at the top. It's certainly in the football ops, you could throw Orlando into the top of that, and you could go to Mitchell as well on that. And beyond him, even to Young, Bob Young. And so signing those two guys back was important. Now, at one point, they're going to lose one of them. Sorry, I mean, if there's a 10th team in this league or some vacancies come, because who's training to be, how many people are really trained to be full-time GMs? I mean, these guys are GMs essentially, but they do different parts of the job. How many guys in this league are really in that position? How many teams have got somebody like that, let alone two, which Hamilton has?
It's just on the family point. Yeah, I mean, that's a storyline that I think, really came in when we were looking at June Jones and June Jones that season, despite the way that season went. But again, it's the guys at the top, and Drew Alamang and Sean Burke do such a good job. Sorry, let's move on because we got a lot to get to. I don't want to keep you too long.
Can't Austin out of the equation for what he did in helping the company.
Absolutely, for sure. And let's talk about the coaching staff because Coach O is back, and so are all his coordinators and a lot of his assistants. Let's talk about Coach O and what he means to this organization. You mentioned him right there with talking about the family atmosphere that he kind of creates and helps harbor with this team. But just your thoughts on Coach O re-signing with the Ticats.
Well, I've known him since he's 22. And he's had coach in him since day one because he's had the intelligence and the football smarts, and he understands that whole thing. And it's overused. I'll say again, family is overused when it comes to football, all pro sports, because everybody describes themselves. How would you describe yourself otherwise in there? But I'd like to think that there's a. I mean, when you talk to the guys who've signed to come back. It happened again as we speak, just hours before we're speaking, with Revenberg re-signing with the team, and he mentioned Coach Orlando as a factor. Speedy Banks for sure has mentioned it. Simone, who's still negotiating as we speak, has mentioned that as reasons to come back. They've mentioned their other coaches as well, their coordinators on their specific spots. They all talk about O's kindness, the sense of family, that kind of thing. And I think he's learning to be – one of the problems with being the head guy is you have to be a little more detached and maybe put your heart aside a little bit. And I think that's been a little hard for Orlando at the start because of who he is as a human being. And you saw that develop during the past season or so, during 2019, at his first time as a head coach. He realized, this is a little bit lonelier position here, and you've got to make some hard choices about people that you really care about.
And
coordinators you do that while maintaining that honesty and integrity as much as you can as a head coach.
Yeah, and the coordinators last year, I mean, they just seem destined for the job. Of course, the whole team, franchise record in wins. Mark Washington, Tommy Condell, and Jeff Reinbold, three well-respected men in the locker room as well.
Let's knit that back to Orlando as well, as because I've compared this before to what's going on at the Buffalo Bills with their head coach. To be a really good head coach, one of the things, and to win, one of the things you have to do is have the confidence to have people who are potential head coaches themselves on your staff. In other words, your replacement could be on that staff, right? All three of those guys are potential head coaches or have been, right? So to have that strength of that staff and to sort of have the personal self-belief that what you want is the best people working for you, no matter how good they are. And that doesn't always happen in football. If you look around, it doesn't always happen. And that's part of it. So I think, all those guys are, I think Washington learned a little bit last year. I think the Grey Cup probably taught Mark Washington more about this team and where the CFL's leaning one way or the other, what the Ticats did and didn't have, than any other game he's probably coached in. And when he'll learn from that, and we're talking specifically of the run and the A gaps and all of those kinds of things, and who has to play where. I think that's great. And Ryan Bolt's I'm just continually amazed with the variety of drills he brings to special teams to keep it interesting. Makes those guys feel important. And you saw that with the Buffalo Bills, right? You're seeing that right now with the Buffalo Bills, how important those special teams guys are. It's really, really important in our game where the special teams are even more important than they are in the U.S.
Yeah, well said. And a guy who started his career in special teams and now the MOP, Speedy B, one of the high-profile signings in the last few weeks. What can you say about Brandon Banks? How important is he to the success of this team? And what's he's not a young guy anymore, and I know he'd be upset with me even saying that. But where do you see him at?
He'll say that. He said them himself. He says, I got to be realistic. I only have so much time left. I've only got so much in this body. And he wants to win a title. He hasn't won one for some time. He took a bit of a discount, but that's a little bit skewed because he took upfront money, which for U.S. players, some of your viewers may not realize that's a much bigger deal because of the tax situation there. If you get upfront money, it's a whole different thing. So, and can help you. It's actually real money in your pocket in the U.S. It's not the same with the Canadian tax structure. So, and I don't know the ins and outs of that, but it's absolutely important. And he said that may help bring other people back. I don't know if it did or not, but boy, it was sure followed by a flurry of signings. You take a look now at that receiving corps, Louie. Top four receivers in terms of yardage, right? We're all under contract now when you include Tucker, Ackland. Addison came back just before Speedy, and he probably understood that Speedy was probably going to come. So the only two quote unquote starters that aren't back are Mike Jones, who signed in Edmonton. He wasn't coming back. They weren't bringing him back. They can do a lot of things ratio wise out there. The running back makes a big difference because he's sort of a receiver as well, and they've got. Ungerer, another one of those sort of Canadians by paper that they think might be able to step in there as well. And you don't know about Luke, right? And that's it's sad for everybody. I think it is that you wonder if Luke's back. Luke Tasker, I'm talking about.
Yeah, Sean, you mentioned the running back, Sean Thomas Erlington, of course, coming back. Don Jackson. Don Jackson was a guy first, Sean Thomas Erlington was somebody who was having such a great season in 2019 before that knee injury that kicked him out the rest of the year. And Don Jackson was one of those signings at free agency last year that the team was very, very excited about. A guy who wanted to be here in Hamilton, and a guy that when you talk to when you talk to Berkey, they had really good things to say about him.
Yeah, and that's right. And it gives him options. It doesn't necessarily mean he'll be the starter. He'll be on the team. Mm-hmm. One would assume if he's healthy. And he was looking forward to it. What I'm looking forward to, of course, and some of your people not know this, that he's a recording artist, a hip hop artist, and fairly well known. And so I can't wait for some of the post game situations with him, assuming we're allowed in the dressing room when they do begin to play. But there's some kind of subtle thing going on there too, because with Thomas Hurlington back, if you're going to start him, you got to have some backup. So having Jackson Bennett showing something last year made a difference there, and so you can put either a Canadian at running back or a hybrid receiver that for the long handoff to the outside for which I'm talking about a short pass, and Jackson does that well as well. So, and if they go with the American in there, then you put a Canadian. And that's where Chris Van Zyl comes in, because he allows you to do that, because he's an extra. Normally you'd play 2 American tackles. Now they only have to play 1. So you look at it, Louie. This is if you don't count at quarterback, I'd see right now of the 12 players on offense, 8 starters are under contract. 9 if you count Dane Evans and not Jeremiah Mazzoli, who's still a free agent as we speak. So that's incredible. I mean, I don't think it was necessarily designed that way. It's the way the pieces are falling into place currently. They got to get at the defense now. But 9 starters back from who we were going to project last year for 2020.
Let's just get through some quick hits, because I know we're short on time here. So I do want to get Courtney Stephen. I know he played such a huge role on special teams when he was here back in 2018. Do you see him playing a similar role like that? And just a quick thought on Mike Daly as well.
Yeah, I mean, both those guys bring something you really need, which is Canadian depth and special teams. They're both hard-nosed, rugged special teams players in different ways now, but they also allow you to do some things in game if you have some injuries at safety. At Courtney, could change things, so you could move Delkay to the outside corner, wide side corner, if you had to in a game, and still maintain ratio. They're pretty important to this team, and not only that, they're the inherited memory of a team. The more people you have that can still play well and have been part of the team for a long time. There's a lot of players that have been here from, say, 2013. Well, it's certainly from 2014, 2015 on. That's a lot of time to have the number of players that Ticats, assuming they re-sign Mike Filer, they might have 8 or 9 of those guys. And that's unheard of in the modern era.
And just final thoughts. Final thoughts on the last 2 here. The most recent, you mentioned Chris Van Zyl. Good Fun Hill boy. Of course, I gotta mention that every time I talk about him. Good Fun Hill boy, Chris Van Zyl, and then today, as we're talking, happened earlier today. Brandon Revenberg signing as well. 2 key parts of that offensive line. Good Essex play, of course. But two again, Canadian depth. Absolutely. 2 great guys at offensive line.
Absolutely key. Assuming that Tate opens the season at starter at tackle, then you've got those 2 guys, and so that's 4 of the 5 or 4. Yeah, 4 to 5. Then there are 3 out of 5. 4 out of 5, and that's assuming Filer signs, and then you got to see what happens with Sirocco in there, and whether they get him or not. That might be a little more difficult. But and they got lots of depth there as well. Revenberg is really, really good. He's going to turn out to be one of the best offensive linemen that's certainly played, certainly in the last 20 years on this team. Whether he's an all-time great remains to be seen, but he's got the potential to be it. They knew it when they got him, and he can also play through the line during a game, which allows you to use like a backup at a place where that backup is better suited, because Revenberg can go into the more into the more difficult spot anywhere across the line.
I'm sure the Ticats will
signing.
The Ticats will give us lots of reasons to talk in the next few weeks, I'm sure, Milty. So thank you for doing this. It's always great to see you. Again, wish you a very happy New Year, and we'll talk very soon, I'm sure.
The Ticats look real good right now, but it's only on paper. But you look good right now in person.
Oh, Milty, thank you. We'll leave it at that. Thanks for doing this, Milty.